Hey guys, Blunderdoes here, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how you can make this wheel or also any other wheel of your choice. So I'm going to be basically teaching you the general method of how you can design any spoke or any wheel that you want by just following this one method. So let's get right into it. So as usual, we're going to delete the default cube. So let me just go ahead, X, delete that. I'll move to one side. So now I'm just going to go and add the reference image. I press Shift plus A, go to image, go to reference, and I'm going to open up the reference image. Okay, there we go. So now I've pulled up the reference image. So if you look at the reference image, if you look at it closely, it's not perfectly aligned with the axis. So the thing about this reference image is it's not looking, the picture is not taking in the same direction as we are looking at it. So the perspective of it is not going to be perfect. So either ways, I'm just going to try to align it as much as possible. So I'll move it up and I'm just going to go ahead and align it. Okay, so I've aligned it now. So now what we're going to do. So basically what we're going to do in this tutorial is we're going to model one of these spokes. So we're going to model one of them and then we're just going to use the array modifier and array them all around. So I'm just going to go ahead and model this first. So I'll press Shift plus A, add a circle first to begin with, align it to the view, and now I'm going to scale it down. Just about there. Okay, so if you can see the picture is not perfectly aligned, so I'm just going to move it a bit up. I'm going to move it a bit down actually. I'm going to move it down till about there. Now I'm going to take the circle and I'm going to duplicate it and scale it up till about here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to extrude the circle out, extrude and scale the circle outward. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get all these vertices to align with all these shapes that we have out here so that we can create the spoke that we have out here. So I'm going to try to align these vertices along these spokes, the design of the spoke. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. E to extrude, S to scale. I'm going to scale it up till here. Now around the circle area, try to extrude it in as small parts as possible because then we'll get a more control over the circle. If we just extrude it once like this, we're not going to get much control over it and the circle is not going to be really nice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to extrude it in small parts. So maybe one there, and I'm just going to keep doing this. Okay, now I'm going to keep on extruding it, and when you do this, just try to extrude it in such a way that you can align the vertices along with these. So don't extrude it too many times, just get it into the main areas where you really need it. So I'm going to go ahead and extrude it once, twice to this curve, once more till about here, and I'm just going to keep doing this. Okay, now if you can see on this side, the circle that we have is not really aligned with the picture, and that's because of the reason I told you earlier. The perspective that we are in right now and the picture was taken is not the same. So you're going to see some areas where it's not in perfect perspective, but that's okay because we're only going to be working in this area and this area seems to be doing fine. So now I'm just going to go and try to align all the vertices. Okay, before that, I'm going to go and remove the areas we don't need. So since we're only working with this area, we don't really require this entire area. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete all those vertices. Press X, delete vertices. So now we have only this area. Now even in this area, we have to count the number of vertices. So what we want to try to do is, we want to try to get equal number of vertices on both the sides of the center out here. So that's what I'm going to do right now. Okay, so now what I've done is I've tried to make one line go right through the center and have equal number of lines on each side of it. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 lines on this side and I have 1, 2, 3, 4 lines on this side. So when we do this, you realize that we have lost the overall shape of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these vertices and we're going to try to align it along with this. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so I've done that, and now the next step that you want to do. So this step is really important. So out here, if you zoom in, you can see that this area is quite irregular. So you want this edge to follow along this curve. I don't know if you can see it properly, but there's this curve around here, and you want it to follow that curve. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to align all these vertices as much as possible with this curve. So I'm just going to do that. Okay, so now I've done that. I've tried to align these vertices as much as possible with this curve out here. So now the next thing that we want to do is we want to start aligning all these vertices out here with this structure, this overall structure that we have out here. So what you want to do is you want to select one edge for one particular edge of the spoke. So out here I'm going to select this edge for this. Okay, I'm just going to draw it down for this edge of the spoke. Then I'm going to select this edge for this edge of the spoke. This line I'm just going to leave it around here. Then I'm going to do the same thing on this side too. So let me just get rid of these annotations. Go back to this, and now I'm going to start working on aligning these vertices along with this edge. Okay, now if you can see, I've tried to align all the vertices along the spokes. So now it does not have to be perfect because we're going to be adding the subdivision modifier later. So that's going to smoothen itself out. So now the next thing we have to work on is this circle. So to cut out the circle, we're going to try to arrange these vertices along the circle, and then we're going to delete all the faces inside it. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so I've gone ahead and arranged all the vertices along the circle. So now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to face select mode, and I'm going to select all these faces inside the circle and delete them. So I'm just going to select this, control, control, control. When you control and left click something, it's going to take the shortest path to that point and select everything in its way. So that's what I've done. I'm going to press X, delete the faces, and there we go. So now this is the structure we've got for the circle. But now we need to delete all these faces too. So I'm just going to be doing that now. I'm going to switch to face select mode, and I'm going to select these faces. Okay, so I've done that. Now this is the structure that we've got. I'm going to hide the image behind. So this is what we've got. So now what we're going to do to this, we're going to be adding some modifiers. So the first modifier we're going to add is called the subdivision modifier. So that's going to smoothen the surface out. So I add the subdivision modifier and I raise that to around 3. I'm going to get the image back and check it out. Okay, so it looks pretty much aligned, and the circle also looks almost the same like what we have on the image. Now I'm going to take this and that circle that we have inside. I'm going to take these two objects and I'm going to move it along the x-axis. Okay, now the next modifier we're going to be adding is called a solidify modifier. So the solidify modifier is going to give this structure that we've built out here some thickness. So solidify, and I'm going to give it a thickness of about 0.4. Now the solidify modifier should always come before the subdivision modifier. So I'm going to move this up, and there we go. So now we have the basic structure of the spoke. So now what we're going to do is we're going to array the structure all around 5 times. So we get all these spokes too. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to add the array modifier. Now the array modifier should always come first. Every time in any modifier that you have, the array modifier should always come first. So I'm going to move this first. Now the type of offset we want is not relative offset. So relative offset meaning it will be moving in a particular axis. So on the x-axis or the y-axis or so on. So I'm going to turn this to 0. And now I'm going to turn off relative offset. The type of offset we need is called object offset. So I'm going to turn that on. And now, but we realize we don't have an object to offset it around. So the object offset is usually used to offset this or array this around a particular object. So, but right now we don't have any object around which we can array it. So I'm going to add an empty. So first of all, you want this cursor to be placed out here. So I'm going to press Shift plus S and cursor to selected. Now I'm going to press Shift plus A, add an empty, plane axis. So now you get a plane axis out here. I'm going to select this object. I'm going to increase this count. Okay, I'm going to increase this count to 5. Select object offset and now select this empty 001. I'm going to select that. So now when you do that, you're going to see this problem. It's arraying it, but the scale and the rotation is completely off. You're going to get some weird structures like this with increased scale, and you're going to be wondering what's really happening. So why this is happening is because your scale is not right. So you have to press Ctrl plus A and you get this option to apply, and you apply the rotation and scale. So I'm just going to click that, and now as you can see, all those weird shapes have gone. So now the way we array this in a circular manner is by rotating this empty. So I'm going to select this empty and now I'm going to rotate it about the x-axis. So I press R and X and now I'm going to rotate it. So we're going to get something like this. So now since we can't really rely on this image that we have, we're going to try to maintain the distance between each array. So I'm just going to go take a close look. And as you can see, the distance between all of them are not the same. So I'm going to rotate it a bit more about the x-axis and try to get that perfect. Okay, so now I've rotated it a bit and this is the distance I'm getting between each of them. So just try to get it as close as possible. It does not have to be perfect because we're going to be joining all of these anyways. So now I'm going to select this and I'm going to be applying the array modifier. So I apply. Okay, so now I've applied the array modifier and now what I want to do is I want to join all of these spokes together. So I'm going to press tab and I'm going to be selecting these edges that we have out here. Oops, where's the object? Yeah. So I'm going to be selecting these edges using edge select mode and I'm going to right click and bridge edge loops. So that's what I'm going to click. So they get bridged together. I'm going to go and do that for all of them. Okay, so I've bridged them all together and now if I press tab, you're going to see that they're all one object. So now I'm going to right click, shade smooth, and this is what we've got till now. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to extrude it in the x direction. So I'm going to press tab, I'm going to select all and I'm going to extrude in the x direction till about there. So now as you can see, this is a bit rounded and that's because we haven't added a crease. So a crease is something that you add when you want a sharp edge next to a smooth edge. So you're going to select all the edges where you want to add the crease and you're going to press Shift plus E and add it out. So I'm going to select this edge, this edge, this edge. Just select all the edges I'm going to be selecting. Basically, if you look at this image, you can see that all these edges are really sharp. So that's what we want to add the crease to. Okay, so I've selected all the edge loops I want to add the crease to. I'm going to press Shift plus E and I'm going to give it a value of 1. Now you may be able to see some shading effects in certain places, and that's because we haven't recalculated the normals. So when we extrude something, we have few shading effects, and how we remove that is we press Tab, we press All, that means the whole structure, and we press Shift plus N. So what Shift plus N is going to do is, it's going to recalculate the normals. So now, if we check it out, it's still not better. So what we want to do is, these edges, you can see it's got some weird shading effect. So that is because the auto smooth is not really on. So under the normal section out here, we can see something called auto smooth. So if we turn that on, we can see that it's cleaned up all of that weird shading effect out there. So now let's move on to the next part. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is, if you can see these edges out here, it looks a bit too smooth. So I'm just going to be adding a loop cut and making those a bit sharper. Okay, so it looks like we're done with the basic structure of the rim. Now all you have to do is we have to add the outer portion of the rim. And how we're going to do that is, we're going to go out here. We're going to select this curve that we had earlier. This curve, we have not really done anything with that curve for a while now. Now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to duplicate that curve and I'm going to scale it up. So Shift plus D to duplicate and scale it up till it arranges or aligns itself with this outer portion of the wheel till about there. Yeah, this seems about right. Okay, so I'm going to press Tab. So now we're in edit mode. I'm going to press 1 to go to vertices, and I'm going to extrude it and scale it. So extrude plus scale, just a little bit, about that much. Yeah, this much should do. And I'm going to select these two curves out here, and I'm going to extrude it in the X direction. So E, X direction, move that about that much. Yeah. And now I'm going to add two loop cuts out here. Place them here. And now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to select these faces out here. And I'm going to extrude it and scale it out. Just a little bit. That's about it. So now we're going to shade smooth. And I'm also going to add a subdivision subsurf modifier. And now you may see that when we did this, it's got a very smooth appearance, but we want the hard surfaces to be hard and the other surfaces to be smooth. So for more control over the edges, I'm going to add a loop cut and I'm going to place it around there. Do the same for this side. And I'm also going to do it over here. Though it may not make a big difference, you can do it if you want. And now when we see it, it's become better, but it's still not perfect. And that's because these edges are actually supposed to be hard, but we haven't added a crease yet. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a crease to it. So I press Tab, I select this edge, and these two edges. and I'm going to press Shift E and add a crease to it. I'm also going to select this, Shift E and add a crease to it. So this is what we get after adding a crease to it. And so now you may see that it's not perfectly aligned with the edge of this wheel out here. So what we're going to do is we're going to scale it down, and I'm going to try to make it as perfect as possible, and I'm going to come back. Okay, so I've worked on the wheel a bit more. I have scaled down this outer circle that we had. So what else I've done is I've merged these two objects together. So what I've done is I've selected the outer structure and the inner structure and pressed Ctrl plus J. So what that's going to do is it's going to merge them together. It's going to merge two objects together. And now this is the final product that I've got. Okay, now we want to fill in this part of the wheel. So I'm going to select this inner circle out here, press tab, go to vertices, go to the X side, and I'm going to scale it down. I'm going to extrude and scale it down a couple of times. Extrude, scale until we get it really small. And now I'm going to start forming faces out here. I'm going to do the same on this side. Select this edge. Okay, so when we select an edge and we have other vertices out here, we can add the faces out here by just pressing F. So we select this one edge, the direction in which we want to go will be decided by Blender. So I'm going to press F and add the faces out here till we reach the last face. So out here I'm going to manually do it. Select these 5 edges and add a face. So now, since we know that we should never have 5 edges in a face, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the knife tool by pressing K. So first I'm just going to unselect that. I'm going to take the knife tool by pressing K and select this edge and make a line all the way up till this edge and press enter or space to make the new edge loop. So why I've done that is because now this 5 edge, this n-gon that we had, has been converted to a quadrilateral which has 4 sides, and that's what we require. Okay, now I'm going to be selecting all the vertices out here by pressing A, and I'm going to extrude all of it in the X direction. So I'm just going to extrude it back. Now to go and check. Okay, I've extruded it a bit too much. And about there. So now as we can see, we have all those shading effects and all the problems that we faced to model this area at the backside too. But so we can do the same process that we did out here in the backside too. But the thing is, no one's going to be looking at the backside of this wheel. So if you want to skip this step, you can do that. But I'm just going to be doing it anyways. Okay, so I've worked on the backside of the wheel and I've made it pretty similar to the front side too. But the only difference that there is that I've scaled these circles and made them a bit small. Because if you look at the reference image, we have these circular things inside here. I'm not really sure what that is. I think they might be screws, but we have those circular things. So I'm going to be putting them in here. So that's going to be our next step. So I go to this view, I press Shift plus A, and I'm going to add a either a UV sphere or this sphere that we have here, and I'm going to scale it down to about that much. Bring it down and try to align it as much as possible. Okay, so I've added the spheres now, and now I'm just gonna shade smooth all of them. So I should have done this. I should have made one of these before and duplicated them after I shaded it smooth, but I've already done this, so I'm just gonna go ahead and do this. Okay, so I've shaded these spheres smooth, and I've also added a subdivision modifier to all of them. So now we have completed the modeling of this wheel, of the serum rather. Now all you have to do is add the materials to it. Okay, now for the materials, you can either follow this reference image we have out here, or you can use your creativity and design your own wheel. I mean, you can literally do anything on the software, and I would suggest you be creative and design, use your own materials, use your own colors, and design your own wheel. But you can follow this too. So how we do that is we just select this, we go to the materials. So as you can see here, I've already added my materials out here, and you'll be able to see them if I go into the material preview. So these are the colors that I've selected. I've made the rim black in color, and I've selected a golden color for this part of the rim. Now, how we give two different areas of one object, two different materials is we select the area which we want a different material on, and we go out here and we add a material. So when we add a material out here, we're going to get this option for new. So we're going to have, suppose I select all of these faces out here. Suppose I select all of these faces out here, and I want to add a new material to it. So I press this new material, I make it pink, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign this material to the selected part of this book. So when I press assign, this is going to become pink in color. So that's how you add different materials to different parts of the same object. So that's the process that I've used out here. So you can do that too. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete this material. Okay, so this is how my wheel looks after adding all the materials. So you can be creative and make your own wheel, add different materials. You don't have to do the same like how I'm doing it. So I hope this video helped you, and I hope you liked it. If you liked the video, like and subscribe, and see you guys in the next one.